Good afternoon. Today we're going to be going over the MYOB Advanced upgrade for 2020.6 and 2021.1. My name's Jeffrey Patch. I work with Leverage Technologies for the last 6 years, primarily on the MYOB Advanced product. The upgrade, this is an overview of the upgrade. There's a mandatory upgrade coming July to October. It consists of two major functional and technology updates. There's the 2020.6 upgrade and the 2021.1 upgrade. They correspond to the last two major upgrades from Acumatica, 2020 R2 release, the second release for 2020, and the 2021 R1 release. Fortunately, for most of us, the upgrade will be transparent. Happens overnight, you'll come in and you'll be upgraded in the morning. But for those of you with integrations and customizations, MYOB strongly recommends testing prior to your scheduled upgrade. There are changes to APIs, there are changes to fields. This is the nature of upgrades. They're advancing, the technology is changing, but it's not as if they're major changes, but it's good to always test, and it saves us on that morning where we upgrade. We're not running around nice and smooth. Leverage will notify you about your scheduled upgrade date. Please contact the support if you do not know the scheduled upgrade date. MYOB will confirm the date probably about a week prior to the actual upgrade. Today's agenda, we're going to be looking at the user interface, we're going to be looking at functional enhancements, and we're also going to be looking for how do you prepare if it's necessary. The user interface, as soon as you enter, as soon as you've been upgraded, you will know you've been upgraded. The splash screen changes. You'll be presented with a splash screen more like this, what you're seeing in front of you. The actual images may not be exactly this. This is up to MYOB in terms of what images they include or they present. But there's a variety of images. E-commerce image, office images, field service type images, construction or service images, warehouse images, more warehouse images, factory floor images, boardroom executive meeting images, construction images, remote images, and if you're taking personal leave image. But all of these reflect different aspects of MYOB Advanced. It covers a broad spectrum, and the images reflect that. At this stage, they're not customizable to you as a customer. It would be nice if it were. It's something that I've requested in the past. I'll continue to request that too, so that you can personalize it even more. But straight away, you know you've been upgraded. But guess what? Your login is still the same, your password is still the same, and you can then just move on to the next screens then. One of the things you will notice is that the interface, I believe, has improved. Previously, it was really grey on grey. Now it's more black on the grey background. The fonts are clearer. In some cases, they're larger. The screen layouts are very, very similar, but the actions are more upfront for you. But the fact that it's black on grey, I believe it makes readability a lot easier. Okay. And there's a couple of changes in terms of the menu colours as well. Your selected theme, it's always good to go with dark, rich colours rather than light colours. So avoid the use of light colours, very easy to change. But speak to us if you have any questions on that. One nice addition is a recently viewed button. So clicking on the button next to the universal search area will show you all your documents that have been recently viewed. Nice to know, because you say, well, what was that sales order I was working on earlier this morning? And you can just go in there, find it, and you can also peg and make certain screens your favourites. You're always going into a particular customer, or you're dealing with particular customers, or classes, or something like that, or you're currently working on a particular project and you want to go back to that frequently. Peg it as a favourite. Dashboards. Dashboards are continuing to improve and refine. We've got new types of KPI dashboards where it's more like a meter. You can see that in the top right hand side there. And the good thing is that MYOB is now delivering predefined dashboards. Rather than just being sample dashboards for education, they're predefined dashboards. There's a specific one for AR clerk, there's another one for an AP clerk, there's one for the financial controller, and there's a bunch of new dashboards that use the side panels for business accounts, opportunities, contacts and cases. So here's an AR clerk dashboard, gives you key accounts receivable metrics. The AP clerk, again, key accounts payable metrics and some graphs and that sort of thing. The controller is more across the whole spectrum of finance, accounts payable, accounts receivable, finance, whatever areas you want. There is a set of project-related dashboards as well for people who are working in project-related industries. And what the MYOB have incorporated now, and it's slowly going out across different business objects, is basically a multifaceted view for MYOB. You're on a business account, I want to see its accounts receivable position, I want to see its project position. I'm doing field service, I want to see the service orders. Okay, so it's delivering a set of pre-configured side panels on a number of screens, including business accounts, opportunities, contacts and cases. But it's worth remembering that what you see here is available really on any generic inquiry. Any inquiry you have on the screen, any list, basically any list of values that you see on the screen, you can have side panels. I'm going to show you a few in a minute. But they can also be included on master data screens and transaction screens. Can be really, really useful. You're on a sales order and you want to see details about that customer, what they've purchased in the last 12 months, how much they've purchased in the last 12 months. But contact leverage for further information if you want more information on that. Read over the documentation, see what it can do. If you do have a sandbox, use the sandbox and have a look what it can do for you. Here's a sample of a multifaceted view for a business account. You have a list of business accounts, customers, suppliers, anything that relates to a business account. You'll see in the center here, I've expanded this, and you'll see there's about 10 different side panels here. So it can be, the first side panel is just looking at the business account in detail. The next one is a side panel showing you all the contacts in relation to that business account. Click on a different business account, you'll get their contacts. The next one is the opportunities that relate to that business account. The next one is the sales orders that relate to the business account. Key metrics about the sales orders, how much they purchased in the last year, the open sales orders, the closed sales orders, any that are on draft or on hold. The next one is more receivables information about the business account. The next one is if you're using warranties and cases and support desk functions, then you can have the cases that relate to that business account. Field service, if you're lucky enough to be using the field service module, then the field service. Again, associated with field service, the equipment that customers has that relates to you. And this one here is contracts, again if you're in that support type area or warranty area. And the last one is the projects associated with the business account. But really, if the information is in MYOB Advanced, we can put it into generic inquiries, we can turn them into dashboards and then link it up to business accounts, customers, suppliers, any of those sort of areas. Now, some changes in the customer area. They've introduced what's called restricted visibility by company and branch. If you're working with multiple companies, multiple branches, that's you as the MYOB site have multiple companies and multiple branches, and many of you have. You may want to limit the customer to only work with certain companies or branches or groups of companies. And so there's a very straightforward mechanism to do that. You can basically turn this on and you can basically say that this customer or supplier only works with this company or this branch or group of companies and branches. The mailing settings, they've made some simple changes here, but they're quite effective improvements. Previously, you added recipients and it only went out as copies, CCs on the email. Now you've got control of that. It can be the 2 person, it can be the CC person, it can be the BCC person. So you can add these recipients quite easily against the mailing settings for your customers. In the area of sales, there's been some nice new feature here. It mainly applies to your customers who you need to receive cash up front before you deliver the goods. You can enforce that now with the new credit facilities in 2021 version, so that you can ensure you have the payment prior to delivery, prior to processing that. Less manual control, more system control in this instance. Accounts payable, some nice extra validation here. So previously we had validation and warnings for over and under the quantities. Now you can do similar in terms of the price. It'll look at the price, it'll look at the unit price, it'll look at the extended price, and it'll give you a warning if you're going over those measures. Suppliers, same as customers. We've got restricted visibility by company and branch. CRM. Okay, we've got some additional predefined security roles here, so you don't have to go and work these out. You can use these predefined ones, review them, see what's applicable, and you can apply it to particular users. A nice new feature in the CRM is on-the-fly duplicate checking. So rather than waiting after you've added a contact, a lead, a business account, you can do this duplicate checking on the fly. It'll tell you if it's found a possible duplicate. It'll show you those duplicates. Then you can take action. I don't need to put this person in; they're already in there. And you can set what it's actually checking. It could be the mobile number, it could be email address, it could be the name. So you can check different things there. Okay, from a platform point of view, there's been some interesting changes here. We've all heard of generic inquiries, okay? But what's put people off in the past is, how do we do these joins? How do we know what tables to join up? Now we have that at hand here. Once you know your first table, say you're working on an invoice, you may want to know, okay, what can I join that invoice to? I want to join it to the customer. I want to join it to the branch, that sort of thing. Now we have a button where we can just say add related table. You can then choose what table to relate it to. You choose that, you add that to the generic inquiry, and it will fill in the details then. So all those details will then be filled in, the join will be filled in. You may want to refine that join in some instances, but in lots of cases you may just say it's going to be an inner join or a left join. You won't refine that little bit of it. But contact leverage support if you need some initial guidance. Okay, read over the notes. A short 10-15 minutes with leverage support. I'll show you how this works. And you should be off and running. And I think this actually increases the capacity for you to create your own inquiries substantively, significantly. Within the generic inquiries, there's some additional functionality as well. You don't have to create a new tab or to preview the inquiry. There's a button on the side. It's a little side panel on the side. Preview the inquiry. So it just saves a little bit, saves a bit of toing and froing between tabs and screens. Okay, now what MYOB and Acumatica are doing is they've added the primary contact to the front of the customers and suppliers. There used to be a field there called attention. That has now been taken off the screen, but what you have is a primary contact there. So you can pull that down from the list of contacts. Cross-company sales. Now this will be important to a few of you, where you do actually do arm's length transactions between companies, between your legal entities. What this will allow you to do is create cross-company sales. So a company might say, gee, I need some of this from my Sydney manufacturing warehouse. So I need a certain product from them. You can create a purchase order. Automatically, it'll generate a sales order over on Sydney. And then that carries all the way through You can set up separate pricing so that you can specify the markup there. It'll take care of your GST. You don't have to re-enter documents. You put in document on one side, it updates it on the other side. You do the shipment, it's ready for receipt on the other side. Okay, so it's just great for the cross-company sales functionality there. You create the shipment, it'll generate the PO receipt. Then you can review it and confirm that PO receipt at the other end. Okay, a brief overview of other highlights. Drop shipments. The functionality there has been improved. There's a lot more interconnections and better visibility on the drop shipments. Matrix items, although none of you are using matrix items that I know of at the moment, matrix items are like colour, size and style. Used to be sub-items were primarily used for this, but matrix items is a more flexible means, and they've just improved that even more. Pricing, well, you now have a more straightforward way of being able to do tax inclusive or tax exclusive pricing. In the area of projects, commitment tracking, whilst it's been quite functional, they've actually improved the commitment tracking and changed some of the calculations. I think this will better reflect the commitments. There's also what they've done is they're breaking down the default sub-accounts and accounts to revenue and cost. It used to be there's just one set of default accounts and sub-accounts, which depending on how you used it, went to revenue and cost. Now they're clearly delineated. And there's a facility to basically do an AP payment run by the project. You can basically say, I want to do an AP payment run, but I only want to do it for this particular project. And thus, you're only paying off the suppliers the purchase orders that relate to that particular project. Some other highlights. Okay, here's one. The first one, SMS messaging. Did you ever want to be able to send an SMS message when you do a delivery saying your delivery is ready, dear customer? So they get a SMS message. Push notifications, sending push notifications to your mobile users. The next one's a little hard to explain. It's called trigger by action. So rather than automated triggers, what you can do is you can have an inquiry up on the screen, do some filtering and just say, I want to push out a particular email or something like that to those customers or those persons identified in that inquiry. So quite useful. Okay. For instance, you could say, well, here's a list of customers. I want to send them all an SMS, this particular SMS. Okay. And in that example I've got here, shipments have been confirmed today. Okay. Send them an SMS. But it could also be an email. Okay. That's all part of the business event setup. Contact leverage if you need further details on that. User-defined fields. Now I know some of you are using user-defined fields quite a lot. Now we've included In the past, they've included facility to do searches in those user-defined fields. Now we can set defaults in those user-defined fields. And one technical area, only used by a few of you, is there's a transition from what's called automation steps to the new workflow engine. This is something only a few of you are using, but this is an important transition. They've increased the capabilities, but to do that, they've had to use a new workflow engine. So we need to transition you from automation steps to the new workflow engine. Okay, so how do we prepare for this upgrade? So the first thing is, what do we do first? So review the documentation. Now these release notes can be found in your Education Centre under the Tools area. There's an Education Centre. We only need to focus on two areas, 2020.6 release notes and 2021.1 notes. There is another set in between called 2020.8, mainly dealing with payroll. So look at that if you're using payroll as well. Now, these release notes are quite extensive, and there's 3 sets for each release. One is the functional set, the other one is the technical, and the other one is upgrading. Okay, my recommendation is scan on the functional release notes, scan the table of contents. There's quite a few pages in the entire release notes, but by scanning the table of contents, you'll be able to focus on the things which are important to you, and then you can basically go down to the detail and read it. So if you need more detail, review the MYOB videos that were recently emailed to you. That's also useful. And you still need more detail, contact the support desk. Okay, now, we can't spend hours with every client. We'd be here till at Christmas doing that with every client. So if you've scanned the release notes and there's items of particular noteworthy for you, or you're confused, then contact the support desk and we'll go over that Now, if you still need more detail, okay, request the Sandbox. For many of you that we've identified as having customizations or integrations, we've already requested Sandboxes for you. But if you do need more detail, you want to see it in action, request the Sandbox. You get this 4 to 5 weeks before the upgrade, okay, and it's basically what it says. It's a Sandbox. It'll be your current system upgraded to the latest release, okay, and you can go in there and see this in action using your data. Okay, so do you need a Sandbox? This is what I've just discussed. Okay, so they can provision Sandbox. If you've got customizations, if you've got API integrations, if you have third-party API integrations, which most of you have, with API integrations, and most of you have done it via a third party, then MYOB strongly recommends that you request the Sandbox. Bring in those third-party people who did the integration and ask them to ensure that the integration will work in the new environment. If you use custom automation steps, okay, if you don't know what that means, it probably means that you haven't used custom automation steps. But if you do know what they are, okay, it's basically changing the process flow as you go through each status of an opportunity or sales or things like that. Request the Sandbox to convert to the new workflow engine. That way you'll be ready. All we have to do at the time of the upgrade is apply the new workflow engine to the upgrade on the morning of your upgrade, and then you'll be off and running. If you don't, then we have to spend the morning resolving that, and you don't want to lose time. And the Sandbox are provisioned 4 to 5 weeks prior to your scheduled upgrade. Upgrade preparation. If you have manufacturing, the advanced manufacturing, and we only have a few recent clients that have that, then the manufacturing is no longer an add-in, it's embedded in the system, and thus what we need to do is we need to unpublish the customization, export any related reports, and then import those reports when you upgrade. Now, the degree of impact, basically it's 0. If you're not using advanced manufacturing, no impact. The workflow engine, I've mentioned that. It replaces the prior automation step. Okay, get a sandbox. Okay, it's the cutover, the changeover from the prior automation steps to the new workflow engine is relatively straightforward, but it needs to be performed so that you're ready to work on the morning of the upgrade. Customers and suppliers. Because the attention field has been taken off, the general info tab that's been replaced by the primary contact, there will be some impact going forward, but not your existing customers that you've already established. If you've got a couple of thousand existing customers, that the attention field and on the billing and the shipping, no change there. Your invoices will still come out with attention such and such at this address as the billing, etc. Going forward, it's basically if you create a new customer, you may need to look at the attention field in relation to the billing and shipping tabs, or if you wanted to, you could change the layouts to include the primary contact. The degree of impact is relatively low though, in terms of going forward. CRM. Okay, there has been changes to the assignment of owner, leads and contacts here. So it's all covered in the upgrade notes. Okay, there may be some generic inquiries that need to be re-established and your custom dashboards because the data, what they call the data schema, has changed a little bit. So if you're using CRM, if you're using opportunities, leads and contacts, it's good to get a sandbox, test it above, adjust. There'll need to be adjustments to some generic inquiries, especially if it's been custom. We can easily export those and then from the sandbox, and then we just import them in to your live database. But the degree of impact, it's moderate if you've got custom GIs. If you don't have custom GIs, it's 0 impact. Dropship processing. This one, if you're using dropship processing quite a bit, then recommend you have a good review of the documentation in relation to drop shipments. Complete as many drop shipments as you can. If you can, cancel remaining ones. Okay, so after the upgrade, the drop shipments relating to sales orders and purchase orders will be marked as legacy documents, and they only can be linked to other ones. So what you can do is drop the drop shipment, so to speak, and then re-establish it after the upgrade is done. Again, good to get a sandbox so you can see what actually happens here, and it's good to read over the notes prior to this. Project commitments. This one is actually pretty straightforward to take care of. All you do is you recalculate the balances. There is functions in a lot of the modules called validate balances. That's all been renamed as recalculate balances. So all it is just recalculate the balances once you've done the upgrade. You'll rebuild the commitment balances, and the degree of impact is low as long as there's no impact as long as you run the recalculate balances. Project default accounts. Now I know that some of us are using the project default accounts. Others are not using it at all. But if you are using it, what we need to do is basically just review the project and the default accounts and sub-accounts, and just make sure that we have the appropriate revenue and cost accounts and sub-accounts there. So there's a little bit of review, and it'll give us more flexibility going forward, more power going forward. And that's about it. So if you have any questions on the back of this presentation, please come back to Leverage Support and address those questions, or send me the email directly. That's Jeffrey jeff.patch@leveregetech.com.au, jeff.patch@leveregetech.com.au. I prefer it goes to support and then they'll designate it. You can copy me in on it. Thank you for your time. Have a great day and have a smooth and successful upgrade.